French President Macron has dropped a bombshell. In a recent interview he gave to Politico, immediately after his China visit, where he spent more than 6 hours with Xi Jinping, he has said that Europe must resist pressure to become America's followers. Yes, that's the kind of language he has used. I quote his statement over here: Europe must reduce its dependency on the United States and avoid getting dragged into a confrontation between China and US over Taiwan. These are the exact words of Macron, what he said in this interview. In fact, he went on to say that Europe should follow strategic autonomy, and this should be led by France as a third superpower. This has sent shockwaves surely in Washington and in the power centers within Europe. To be honest, everyone was expecting Macron to mellow down on his anti-Russia rhetoric after his visit to China. But even for people who are expecting that, this has come as a shocker, because Macron has gone one step ahead and he has actually mentioned that United States has its own geopolitical interest and Europe should not follow that. This is a serious deviation from the united Western Front that has been put up over the last 1 year. This statement of Macron clearly showcases the fissures between Europe. Clearly, Europe is not united. In fact, this was evident during the Chinese visit of Macron and Ursula, who is the president of European Commission. Right from the start of the trip, when Macron received a royal red carpet welcome with full military parade, Ursula got a very cold welcome. She was received by the ecology minister. She was received in a passenger terminal. Right from the start, it was very clear what China wanted. China wanted to see that Europe has a lower political stature and Macron higher, so that China benefits from this. Macron brought along with him some 30 to 40 industrialists who signed multiple agreements with China for trade, right from nuclear power to machines and technology. But what caught my attention was an old deal signed last year for 160 Airbus for 36 billion euros, which China signed with France last year. So I was a bit curious why Macron chose to promote this deal in this trip, because it's pretty old. Clearly, Macron wants to project France as a major trading partner with China, and in general the Chinese media, from what I have read, have hailed this visit from Macron, and they have mentioned good things about Macron, and they have widely covered Macron trip. But at the same time, Ursula didn't get a lot of kind words from the Chinese media. What Ursula said in these meetings with Xi Jinping was also partly a reason for that. Look, she did two things. She lectured Xi Jinping on how Xi Jinping should not be aggressive with Taiwan, which clearly Xi Jinping didn't like, and Xi Jinping gave it to Ursula then and there. He went on to say that any country which thinks that China can compromise on Taiwan would be shooting on its foot. So that's exactly how harsh Xi gave back. Ursula also warned Xi Jinping on his face that China should not supply weapons to Russia. And Xi Jinping also didn't like that. Who likes to be lectured? And clearly that's one of the reasons that Xi Jinping gave such kind of poor treatment to Ursula. But at the same time, even though Xi Jinping didn't exactly praise Macron, he didn't go overboard, but clearly there was more love for Macron than Ursula. So partly that's also because Ursula is seen as a mouthpiece for Washington, right? I mean, everyone knows that she speaks on behalf of Washington and everyone suspects that. So clearly Xi Jinping had different treatments decided for both of them. But what did Xi Jinping achieve from this trip over the last few days? Xi Jinping did two things, okay? The first thing is that he has clearly drawn boundaries that Europe should not interfere in a Taiwan conflict, a conflict between China and Taiwan. Xi Jinping has divided Europe when it comes to Taiwan. At the same time, Xi Jinping has not assured Europe or the Western powers that he will not supply weapons to Russia. He has also kept that option open. He has also not condemned Russia. Obviously, no one was expecting him. No one in the right frame of mind would expect that to happen. So these are the things he achieved from this trip. What did Macron achieve? Well, Macron kind of sent a message to Xi Jinping that France would at least not be directly involved in a conflict if it happens with Taiwan. So what Macron is trying to do is that he's trying to insulate himself from any possible after effect of a conflict between Taiwan and China. He's kind of trying to fortify his country and safeguard the interests of his country, which honestly even India did over the last 1 year. In fact, this also points out to the hypocrisy of Europe, where European leaders actually hounded Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar when he visited Europe that India was sitting on fence and India was not picking a side. But Macron is doing exactly the same. He's setting the base for not picking a side in a conflict between China and Taiwan if and when it happens. So he's doing exactly what Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done over the last 1 year. So while India has maintained strategic autonomy when it comes to Russia-Ukraine conflict, France wants its own strategic autonomy when it comes to Taiwan and China conflict. And clearly United States must not be happy about it. Washington and Pentagon would be thinking of their next move. Clearly over the last 1 month, there have been massive protests in France. Who knows, Macron might also be suspecting United States of trying to pull off a regime change in France. I mean, again, this is just speculation, but there might be many reasons why Macron has taken this route. But clearly, Europe is divided today, and there are clearly certain blocks. Earlier, last few weeks, German Chancellor Scholz visited, and before that, even the Spanish authorities visited China. So clearly there are some countries, at least in Europe, who want to kind of be good friends with China and ensure that any future sanctions which United States might impose on China, if and when China invades Taiwan, would not affect the trade between these countries and China. So that's the underlying message. Some European countries are giving out an olive branch to China. At the same time, some European countries, or I would rather say Washington's deep state within Europe, is continuing to give a stern message to China. So in a sense, this is a good cop, bad cop strategy, but I think Macron has picked his own path over here. I think the few statements that Macron has made, this is start of the division of Europe when it comes to dealing with Russia and China. This is Jagrish signing off from this video. Do like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll keep posting more videos. Stay tuned.